Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste those half-pound Wagyu burgers, those incredible ribeyes and tomahawks and cowboy cut steaks. I tell you what, folks, the New Yorks are the best I've ever had. And how about the short rib of beef? All of it is really, and I mean really good. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com for USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. UppercutChops.com. Give them a call. Find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Of course, they get the super applause. Great steaks and chops. Hey, listen, folks, nothing wrong with that. All right, a big welcome to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates from coast to coast. Everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild, Charter, NBC, CBS, and independent cable affiliates, whether it's digital or terrestrial. Listen, folks, we're everywhere. You can't get away from us. Everybody also on Pick Your Favorite Streamer. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Check that group out, folks. Chicago Food Favorites. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And also, our friends at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights. Basically, it's a 3-day, 2-night right here in Las Vegas. Nice little getaway there. Or Orlando, Florida, or Scottsdale, Arizona. If you know the answer to a simple trivia question, and if so, call the number I give you right afterwards and claim yours. Which city in America is home to the tallest building in America? That's it. Which city in America is home to the tallest building in America? If you know the answer, call 702-603-1414. 702-603-1414. 702-603-1414. Now, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station. However, they want to give you a 3-day, 2-night right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri. If you know the answer, call 702-603-1414 right now. We think about that proverbial matchup. Everybody refers to, well, you know, it's David versus Goliath, all that kind of fun stuff. And this is the mismatch of mismatches, right? Doesn't matter whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, cricket, whatever the heck it is. Doesn't matter. It's like Tiger Woods playing me in golf. And I, of course, would be David in this particular case because I'm arguably one of the worst golfers I've ever seen in my life. But nonetheless, we think about David and Goliath. Now, in case you don't know, I mean, look, some people just don't know about the David and Goliath thing in the first place. Kind of like some people say, well, hey, we know St. Patrick's Day, for example, and that wonderful day in March, right? Even in Chicago, they dye the river green. Now, how come a day later or 2 days later, they don't dye the river red for St. Joseph's Day? That's essentially the Italian version of St. Patrick. And by the way, for all you people that think St. Patrick is Irish, St. Patrick was not Irish. St. Patrick, guess what, is Italian. Hey, that's some good trivia right there that you can bedazzle people with at a cocktail party and maybe get yourself a free drink or something. I'm not really sure how that works, but nonetheless, you probably could get one. Anyway, so that David and Goliath thing, in case you don't know, I'm going somewhere with this show today, folks, and you got to hang in there with me because it's a fun thing. Look, I don't do rapid fire topics. That's just not how we do it here. I mean, for a very long time, we've been on the air doing the Sports Circus. I put this show together back in the mid-2000 teens. And when you look at the show, you say, all right, it has certainly evolved from just sports radio to sports and entertainment radio to sports and entertainment television, etc. and so forth. But go back to that story of David and Goliath, one of those biblical ones, right? That's the old iconic tale of faith and courage, where young shepherd David defeats the giant warrior Goliath using only a sling and 5 stones and faith in God, of course. David kills the armored champion, resulting in an unexpected win that inspired the bravery and demonstrates God's providence over brute strength. Now, think about this. When people say, well, I'm a hunter. Okay, are you hunting with a stick and a rock? Or are you hunting like a cowardly gunsman? Are you using a gun from 100 yards away or whatever the heck it is and taking down your prey? And frankly, that's just target practice. So I think about what it looks like with hunters being the Goliaths or the bullies of the bunch. Do you think Joe Blow Hunter or Josephine Blosephine Hunter could take down a big, 5-point deer or whatnot, those giant elk, or even a wild boar or a bear or something like that? And they say, well, let's go on these African safaris and all this other crap. You're shooting from afar like a coward. And so they're not even giving the animal a chance to defend itself. Well, in the case of David and Goliath, well, guess what? David using a sling and 5 stones. That's it, a sling and 5 stones. That's the same idea. And so think about this. There's a conflict in the story, right? And so for 40 days, the giant Goliath, described as over 9 feet tall, challenged the Israelites to single combat, causing great fear, right? And the protagonist, of course, is David, a young shepherd, brings food to his brothers, who was the only one brave enough to face that monstrosity, Goliath, refusing traditional armor. And then, of course, there was the battle that I mentioned. So the outcome, we know the outcome. But the one thing that we do know is that, look, if you've got a little bit of intestinal fortitude, you can overcome any obstacle, no matter how daunting. And people say, well, God don't give you what you can't handle, right? Real simple. But it's also a battle of weakness and strength. Think about all the sporting matchups that we have, right? You've got these teams like the evil empire. People always said that about the Yankees. Well, the Yankees, they would just buy their championships. Well, I think the Dodgers are doing a little bit of that too. And you say, well, wait a minute. Why is there such a disparity? And how can the little team that doesn't have the big payroll and whatnot, how can they beat the big team with the big money kind of thing? I'm not saying little in size. I'm just talking about as far as financial strength. And that's the bigger question. And so what's the symbolic meaning of this whole thing? Well, look, you put your own symbolic meaning to it. I mean, even though Goliath was, 9 feet tall, the average man, back in the day was probably 5.5 feet tall, 6 feet tall max, probably 5.5 feet tall. I mean, look, what's the message? It really emphasizes, in my opinion, nothing is impossible. And so as I look at the David and Goliath matchup, I say we see these in sports all the time. And all the time, it's kind of like history just repeats itself. And so we'll think about the idea of March Madness. March Madness, of course, widely considered superior, yes, to the college football playoff. Due to its larger, more inclusive field, of course, high stakes win or go home structure, and unmatched potential for dramatic upsets. I got to tell you, folks, as I look at the CFP, the Frozen Four, and hockey, March Madness, I happen to believe that March Madness, to me, is probably the most fair sports tournament below the pros, period. Actually, the pros, I don't even think they're fair anyway. But I'm just saying, as far as quasi-amateur, because these players are getting paid because they're not really amateurs at this point. But the reality is, it, in my opinion, is clearly the most fair collegiate tournament, period. I mean, look, even high school sports have been tainted because now you've got these traveling teams, and I know right here in Las Vegas we have a particular private high school, not to be nameless, and they compete against everybody else in the Valley. However, we see this in Chicago, we see it in LA, we see it in Vegas, we see it in New York, we see it in Florida with the IMG Academy down in Florida. I mean, come on. It's kind of like you have schools just for sports and then you have schools for academics. But the disparity in, I guess, in talent, I hate to say it that way, but in athletic ability, well, you'll see all these kids go to these schools that are technically athletic mills. And we see the same thing in, for example, in college football with Ohio State. It's the same thing. Well, yeah, they turn out some pretty good football players, except quarterbacks -1 being C.J. Stroud, who is a little bit questionable right now. But it just seems like you have mills for athletes. But what about after? What about after sports? What happens there? Okay, well, we don't know about that. But I'll tell you what we're going to do when we come back from break. We're going to take a real comparison between the college football playoff and the big dance, NCAA March Madness, the big tournament. So don't go anywhere. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. They've been with us since the very beginning of the Sports Circus. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our radio affiliates. Everybody over in Atlanta, tuning in on 99.1 FM at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. Thanks for joining us over there. And, of course, right down the road, everybody driving home with us between Montgomery, Alabama and Columbus, Georgia, right there out of Auburn, Alabama, WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves, War Eagle. Thanks for joining us down there. Of course, up and down the Midwest, out to the West Coast, everybody driving between sunny Southern California and fabulous Las Vegas, listening in on Highway Country Radio 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. At 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. That is home of the Raiders, the Vegas Golden Knights, and, of course, the Sports Circus at 7 p.m., as I mentioned. And, of course, all the way up to Alaska, down to our friends at CBS Sports, 1500 KHKA. That's over in Honolulu. That is home of the 49ers, the New York Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus, everybody watching on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild, Charter, CBS, NBC Digital, and independent affiliates in select markets. Thanks for joining us there, as well as Hotel TV where applicable, and of course on social media. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, fun group, talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes, make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And by the way, folks, if you're just tuning in, at the top of the hour, Vacation Buddies gave away, or are giving away, a couple of nights, a 3-day, 2 nights, right here in fabulous Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Scottsdale, Arizona, if you know the answer to a simple trivia question. In case you missed it, I'm going to give it to you right now. Which city in America is home to the tallest building in America? That's it. If you know the answer, call 702-603-1414. 702-603-1414. Remember, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a 3-day, 2-night right here in Las Vegas, luxury accommodations, Orlando, Florida, or Scottsdale, Arizona. If you know the answer to that simple trivia question, 702-603-1414. Call now. So the idea of David and Goliath, as we start off in the first segment, I was really referring to the comparison first. I'm going to do just, there's this big comparison between, of course, the March Madness, the men's basketball tournament, which is probably the best tournament in all of sports, next to the Stanley Cup, of course. And, of course, the college football playoffs. Just comparing March Madness and the CFP. Think about this. Why March Madness really outperforms it. I mean, look, there's a lot of reasons for it. But think about the inclusivity and the opportunity. March Madness really allows the mid-majors, those teams, to compete with Cinderella stories. And it's fun to watch. And we've seen them. I've seen them. You've seen them. It's fun. It's fun watching my Loyola Ramblers. Went to law school there, folks. And got to tell you, watching Loyola get to the Final Four in my lifetime, actually, they won the national title the year I was born. So that tells you everything you need to know. But to see the little schools in there, it's a beautiful thing because they actually get a shot. Even if you have a losing record, but you win the division somehow, or you win the tournament. You win the if you end up winning the conference tournament, you find your way into, yes, March Madness. And that doesn't mean you're playing in the battle for number 69 for the NIT tournament. No. It means that you get a chance to be number one in these United States of America. I love that idea. And so the idea that everybody really gets a shot. Unlike in the college football playoff, I mean, look, historically limited opportunities, really just, 4 teams, maybe. It's like the same thing over and over. Wash, rinse, and repeat, right? So you get your Power 4, because now the Pac-12 is out of the Power 5, because they've retooled, and now they're the Pac-8 now again, like what they used to be. I don't know. It's crazy. But back to the basketball. Look, why March Madness is better than the CFP. Look, you have drama that just comes out of nowhere. You're like, what in the world? How does a number 16 beat a number 1? And we've seen this movie. And probably the most notable one that I think of is, I mean, look, there's a lot of number 1s that struggle in their first game in that 16-1 matchup. Because usually they're looking past that squad and they're like, yeah, but those guys are number 16 for a reason. But think about University of Maryland, Baltimore County. That's right. UMBC. When they beat number 1 overall seed Virginia. I think I want to say it was right around 2019, 2020. I forget, something like that. In any event, but it was such an upset. Nobody's ever seen it. In fact, Virginia was so bent out of shape that they came back and won the tournament the next year in convincing manner, because that one stings. Nobody's even, I mean, I don't know anybody that's ever even heard of UMBC in the first place. That's just reality. And so, I mean, you may have, but I surely haven't. Until the tournament, I had no idea there was such a school. Now, we all know University of Maryland, Terrapins, but we don't know University of Maryland, Baltimore County? What in the world? Yeah, it's just that way. In the same way you can watch games, you can watch Siena really give Duke a hard time in the first round of the 2026 Big Dance. And it's just, this is what happens. And we've seen the big teams go down. But I have to tell you, they're character builders for the big teams. It's kind of like, look, any 5 could beat any 5. And you think about recruiting. Sometimes the recruiting side of it says, hey, look, we have out-recruited your team, but it doesn't mean it guarantees a win. And we see this in sports all the time. I mean, most famously in my mind, I go back to the 1990 Oakland A's on the back end of trying to do a back-to-back and an alleged almost dynasty of sorts. That was Canseco and McGuire and Ricky Henderson and all those guys. And what happens? They face the Cincinnati Reds with Jose Rijo and the guys and a bunch of young players, the Joe Olivers of the world, etc., the Hal Morrises of the world, whatever. I mean, look, you look and you say, well, geez, that was a bona fide David and Goliath, with, of course, the Oakland A's being Goliath. But guess what happened? The unthinkable happened. It was the Cincinnati Reds sweeping, that's right, sweeping Goliath and just punching him in the face, stealing his milk money, and kicking him in the parts and sending him on his way. And that's what the Reds did to the Oakland A's. And we've seen this. Now, what happens in college basketball with March Madness, you have a whole bunch of these David and Goliath matchups. And I like that. I don't know about you folks, but I dig it. March Madness is remarkably unpredictable. That's why no one's ever had a perfect bracket, right? Single game eliminations. I mean, football allows better teams to win more comfortably, if you know what I mean. And there are daily action and pacing things with March Madness as well. Look, the tournament packs 63 games into 3 weeks, really. And that's how you got to look at it, with 16 games a day for the first couple of days, whatnot. Nonstop action. I mean, it's really a lot of fun to watch. Anything can happen. Now, the CFP, conversely, has a big, long, week-long gap between the games. And it really steals the momentum of the tournament itself. I mean, there's plenty of sources that you can read about this. I mean, I don't know, one of our favorites is the Tennessean. Go ahead and read about it through them. But I like the bracket culture itself. I mean, the NCAA tournament's 68-team structure really encourages casual fans to fill out brackets, creating, I don't know, the unthinkable. And you could almost throw darts at a board in some cases, and you'll end up picking an upset somehow. And that's the cool thing about it. Whereas college football, it doesn't really have that. I mean, there is a different stake in this, and I'll get to that in a minute. But you also think of the transparency of the NCAA tournament. In my opinion, it's probably a hell of a lot better than what the CFP has to offer because the selection process is viewed as a more transparent process than, of course, the remarkably controversial college football playoff. Think about that one, folks. I mean, look, there are so many differences between the two. And yeah, in college football, if you don't make the college football playoff, there are some schools, they say, well, you know what? We don't want to play in a bowl game. That's right. We were offered a bowl game, but it's not good enough for us. That's right. That kind of thing happens. But guess what? In college basketball, the one thing that we do see as well is that some teams, some of the bigger conference schools, they decline bids to play in the next tournament down, which, of course, is what the NIT, the National Invitational Tournament. And I don't know, it's kind of a black eye if they play it, in their opinion, apparently. But they should play it, just like in the football games. They should play the games because not everybody on the team is a 4-star recruit, 5-star recruit, whatever. And that's their chance to shine. And so how do you steal that away from the kids? And frankly, I think that's a very, very poor taste. You really shouldn't do that. I just don't like the idea that, well, let's face it, some schools don't get the opportunity, their players don't get the opportunities that work their asses off all career long to get to a point where they're playing the biggest game of their lives and they can't do it. College basketball, we're going to continue with in just a few minutes, folks. Don't go anywhere.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Investors, keep listening to learn how to get your free gold report. A currency crisis is upon us. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 50 years, but that is changing. It's time to protect your retirement. Decades of reckless borrowing and spending have critically weakened the dollar. The U.S. has become the world's biggest debtor with over $35 trillion in debt. Plus, the dollar's become weaponized. Countries are dumping it. Investors who wait until it's too late could lose big. There is one safe haven: gold. Diversify your portfolio with a physical asset they can't take away. Call the Reagan Gold Group right now and ask for your free gold guide. Here's our number:
800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. That's 800-876-7041.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at Al's #1 Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's #1 Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. If you can't get over there for some great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com, and tell them Ringmaster Sal sent you. All right, go say hi to my friend Bones over there. He's been on TV a bunch of times on all those cooking shows, those traveling food shows, whatever, all kind of stuff like that. Boy, really good stuff, folks. If you've never had an Italian beef sandwich, you're really missing out. Don't confuse it with the Philly cheesesteak sandwich. Very different sandwich altogether. Cooking versus frying, folks. This is real cooking, unlike that low grade of beef that's thrown on a flat top with that Philly cheesesteak. They slap some Cheese Whiz on it, throw it on a bun, and send you on your way. To me, boy, it's no comparison whatsoever. The people from Philadelphia really have been cheated on this one. Anyway, that's why you go to Chicago and get some good food. And check them out also on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. That's Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. A fun group. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. And friends around the world, too. And for all four corners of the earth, for all you flat earthers out there. All right, back here with the NCAA basketball, and it's really the tournament versus the college football playoff. That's really kind of the theme for this. And we think about the NCAA men's basketball tournament really has 68 teams, unlike the college football playoff with their 12 teams, maybe go to 16, who the hell knows. But there's 31 automatic bids awarded to conference tournament champions and 37 at large. Now, what I find interesting is it's the conference tournament champions rather than the conference champions. I mean, there's a whole nother show in that if you look at it. But the automatic qualifiers guarantees their spot regardless of record, while the committee fills in the remaining spots based on selection criteria. So we think about those automatic bids, and look, they are granted to the winners of those 31 divisions. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Power 4, a mid-major, a group of 5, or whatever the hell it is. You are in there if you win your conference tournament. Every team with losing records can secure a spot by winning their conference tournament. Now, that's pretty damn cool, folks. I don't know about you, but I kind of like that. That's very cool. So, I mean, you think of those automatic bids, even from these little schools. Let's go to the 2026 automatic bids, for example, smaller schools. For example, like the Catamounts of Vermont, right? You think of that American East Conference, Jacksonville in the Atlantic Sun, Rhode Island in the Atlantic 10. This is actually from the year previous, whatever. My point is, you get teams in there like the Penn Quakers, right? The Penn Quakers get in there. Let's take a look at those results from the 2026 season. And I love the fact that these schools that get in there, here, again, you've got University of Maryland, Baltimore County, we mentioned them before, out of the American East in the 2026 tournament, 25-26, and the years previous, whatever. So listen, folks, you can play this show today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, or next decade. And the cool thing is the content is still relevant today. That's how you got to look at it. Over in the American Athletic Conference, in the 2025 and 26 season, it was South Florida getting in to the big dance. That's right, South Florida. When usually it's the usual suspects of like Wichita State. What happened that Wichita State lost to South Florida, and well, that was the end of that when it came to the conference tournament. And so looking up and down these other conferences, of course, the Atlantic 10, you have the Billikens of St. Louis as the at-large team, but it was the Virginia Commonwealth University squad that won the tournament. And they both, ironically, were 15-3 in the conference, which, again, two very good squads. But think about this. Do you think for a second that, let's go to college football playoff, do you think that looking at the automatic bids, we get the Power 4, get them, and the at-large schools, let's just say hypothetically in the, I don't know, let's pick one of these conferences here. All right, let's go to the Big South Conference. No, let's not go to the Big South. No, that's not a good example. I'm going somewhere with this, folks. So let's just say in the Big East, right, you had Connecticut. Let's just say, well, Connecticut actually is an independent, so that's not really a good selection. And we just keep on trucking here. Just bear with me here. Conference USA. All right, let's just go to Conference USA. Let's just say in college football, out of Conference USA, that Western Kentucky ends up undefeated. And let's say they are snubbed from this college football playoff system. Well, guess what? Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers, are going to complain about it, no question. And frankly, I would too. But the reality is, Western Kentucky isn't a big enough TV audience. They're not a big enough fan base, apparently. And this is just according to the dollars and what we see on television. How would Western Kentucky ever get a shot to compete in the college football playoff? They'd have to be one of those at-large, which is really only 2 at-large in the grand scheme of things. That's right, only 2. But there are 37 at-large bids in the NCAA men's basketball tournament. That's a lot. And I got to tell you, folks, that in itself is very exciting. So the little guy gets a shot. Back to the A-10. Yeah, St. Louis in the 2025-26 season, St. Louis and Virginia Commonwealth both went to the dance. Of course, in the ACC, well, we already know what happens there. I mean, it was Duke and Virginia. These are teams that went to the tournament. Duke, Virginia, Miami, Carolina, Clemson, Louisville, NC State. I mean, just crazy stuff. Even SMU, right? They all went to the big dance. Over in the Atlantic Sun, the little guys, who got a shot? Queens out of North Carolina. What? Queens. That's right. Who knew? Queens matched up with the Boilermakers of Purdue. I mean, not an easy task for Queens, but the cool thing is, it's Queens that actually made it. Who ever heard of them before the tournament? I haven't. I didn't even know there was a Queens in North Carolina. And I'm a college recruiter. Out of where? Out of North Carolina. That's right. I never even heard of them. How cool is that? That you get a little school with a shot to join the big dance. And the Big 12, we already know. From the 25-26 season, Arizona, Houston, what else did they have? They had Kansas, Texas Tech, Iowa State, TCU, Central Florida, Brigham Young. They all made the big dance. Out of the Big East, the Johnnies from St. John's and UConn and Villanova all made the big dance. And what was kind of interesting that I see is that for years and years, now DePaul out of Chicago joined the Big East. They're right there with Marquette and Butler and so forth. And what I find interesting is that when DePaul went to join the Big East, they were getting their asses handed to them every conference game. They'd win outside the conference. They could not win. And in the 25-26 season, they actually won 8 out of 20 games, or 40% of their games, which is probably the best record that the Blue Demons have had since being in the Big East in the first place. So to my hometown DePaul Blue Demons, give them a nice round of applause. Their heyday back with Ray Meyer back in the day when they had Mark Aguirre and the guys, and back in the early 80s they were pretty good, but well, they've fallen on hard times. Now out of the Big Sky, we see, well, the Idaho Vandals in the 25-26 season made it. And look, they were 9-9 in conference. So again, this is that anybody gets a shot if you make or if you win your conference tournament. So here's a 500 team that made the big dance. Out of the Big South, it was High Point, and they were clearly the best team in that conference. And they've been a very good squad for a very long time. Very few people know about High Point in the first place. I've touted them for the last several years. Those guys are good. Of course, we know the usual suspects out of the Big Ten. Half the damn conference makes it. In the Big West, that's right, the Big West has some good basketball being played through. How about the University of Hawaii? The representative out of the Big West. Do you think they'd ever get a shot in the college football playoff? Hell no, in my opinion. Hell no. Out of the Colonial, the Colonial? Hofstra, the Hofstra Pride. Hofstra made the tournament. Could Hofstra ever make the CFP? Probably not. Conference USA, who do we have? Listen, there are some good squads. How about Kennesaw State? What? Where's Kennesaw State? That's right, they're in Georgia. In the Horizon League, it was Wright State, the usual bad boy in there. And then in the Ivy, it was the Penn Quakers upsetting Harvard in the final game. Penn with a record of 9-5 in the conference, not so good. Out of the Metro Athletic, it was Siena, 13-7. They made it. They had to square off against Duke. Out of the Mid-American, who do we have? Oh, that's right. We had nobody, minus, of course, who was it? NC State or Howard? Yeah. But in any event, never mind that. Mid-American, you had Miami of Ohio. They deserved it along with the Akron Zips. Missouri Valley, there's some really good schools. University of Northern Iowa. Mountain West, Utah State. Northeast, Long Island. What? Long Island, Ohio Valley, Tennessee State. What? Patriot League, Lehigh. What? And it goes on and on. That's why the Big Dance is better than the CFP. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
800-485-3125. 800-485-3125. 800-485-3125. That's 800-485-3125.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great items, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, ball caps, beanie hats, pants, sweatpants, sweat coats. What else do we have? We have coffee mugs and travel mugs and pillows and blankets, all with the clever Sports Circus logo on them. That's right, the store at thesportscircus.com. Click on the tab right at the top. And for all those items, guess what? Made in America, first of all. Hey, that's a great thing. And also, get a 10% discount if you mention me, your Ringmaster Sal. Yes! All right. Welcome back to everybody on radio and TV. You know who you are. And I'm doing a David and Goliath in a comparison versus the NCAA, actually, versus their big dance and their counterpart, the college football playoff. So with the 31 automatic bids to the big dance, college football playoffs basically has, 4, maybe 5? We'll call it 4. And that's it. And so the problem is the big conferences are the team or the schools, whatever. The conferences, they're the ones that actually get most of those playoff berths. So you have the Big Ten, the SEC, of course. Those are the two big boys in college football. But the cool thing is about college basketball, you win your conference tournament and you could have a sub 500 record in the whole season. You could be over until you get to the college basketball tournament for your conference. And guess what? You could make the big dance. Now, that is a cool thing. CFP does not allow that. College football, forget it. So I was running through as I was closing out the last segment. I was giving props to the 2025 and 26 season for the NCAA men's basketball, and whether it was that year, the year before, or future years, whatever. But we certainly wanted to give a little extra recognition to some of these squads that got out there and they played their hearts out, like Tennessee State out of the Ohio Valley. I mean, a very, very, very hungry team. Yes, they were 23-9 overall that season. However, and in the Ohio Valley, but you play who's on your schedule. People are complaining about Miami of Ohio. Well, Miami of Ohio lost one game all season. That was to the University of Massachusetts in their conference tournament. That's the only game they lost. They actually had the best record in all of college basketball in the regular season and in the conference before the big dance. And they actually had to play in, which I think that was wrong, but at least they were given a shot. And I had mentioned out of the Patriot League, it was Lehigh that came out of that conference. Out of the Southeast Conference, I mean, geez, you had several, 10 teams, I think, Florida, Alabama, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Missouri, Kansas, Texas. It was kind of crazy. But out of the Southern League, who do we have? It was Furman. That's right, Furman made the big dance. With a 10-8 record, they still find themselves in the big dance. In the Southland, it was McNeese State, a very good squad, by the way. McNeese State, they had a pretty good record, 28-5 overall, 19-3 in conference. And, they earned it. They really did. But you think of some of these other ones, some of these other schools, you say, well, how did they get in there? How did Prairie View get in at 9-9 in the conference and 19-17 overall? Guess what? They won the conference tournament, and that's how Prairie View got in there in the first place. And that's the same thing with the North Dakota States of the world and whatnot. This is what happens in the big dance, and you gotta like that. Out of the Sun Belt Conference, the men of Troy, they were 22-12 overall, 12-6 in the conference. Yes, they did win the conference tournament, but there's no way the men of Troy would have got a shot in the college football playoffs, even though they have a good football team. There's no way they would get a shot. I mean, it'd take a miracle for them to get a shot. And that's how this stuff works, folks. That's why we're going over it. And just a couple of more here. Do you think the West Coast Conference would even have a shot at anything for football? No. Oregon State somehow is grouped in with the basketball group, but they're in the Pac-2 or Pac-12 or whatever they are, the Pac something or another. But you've got great basketball played out of there. They're a perennial powerhouse with Gonzaga, Santa Clara, and St. Mary's. And all three of those squads got in there into the big dance in 2026. and out of the West Coast Athletic Conference. Who in the world would have ever thought that Cal Baptist would have made the big dance, let alone even have a shot at any kind of a college football tournament? That's right. Cal Baptist. They are the representatives, or were the representatives, from the Western Athletic Conference. It's interesting how these conferences have evolved, but out of the WAC, who thought Cal Baptist would have ever made it? So we give them the extendo applause. They get the extendo applause. But think about the NIT. It's basically, look, the NCAA says we want you to have a shot at playing in a postseason tournament. Now, whether it's for the right to say you're number 69 in the country, because that's what the NIT is, a National Invitational Tournament. There's another one beyond that. But the reality is, it's a reward for a hard year or a hard season of playing where your team just wasn't good enough. But at least they get to celebrate something. And so I find it a slap in the face when certain schools say, well, we don't want to compete in that tournament. Or even in that 2026 World Baseball Classic, where Team USA lost to Venezuela. They were just straight out hustled. Period. They were outmanaged, and that was the end of it. There's no two ways about it. And then Team USA, some of the players showing no class whatsoever, Kyle Schwarber and some of the other guys, taking that silver medal off as if that's not good enough for them. Well, they didn't earn the gold. That's the reality. And so you should celebrate whatever is given to you at that point after what you've done. Hey, listen, you came in second. Take your trophy home, take your medal home, whatever it is. And look, just be thankful that you woke up that day, let alone had an opportunity to compete at that level anyway. And see, that's what a lot of people seem to be missing about this. And frankly, I think it's a very, very poor taste when some of these schools, they turn down an opportunity to play in something. For example, Notre Dame, those guys, they always get a round of booze from us because they turned down an opportunity to play in a good bowl game because they didn't make the college football playoff in the first place. Get over yourselves, people. Seriously, just get over yourselves. In the grand scheme of things, I have to tell you that institutions like that allow that kind of poor behavior, their people do the same thing, in my opinion. They do the same thing when it comes to the business world. They complain about stuff. Why? Oh, because they didn't get the raise. They didn't get this. They didn't get the preferential treatment, whatever the heck it was. That is the part of the problem with allowing that culture to live, for example, in these, well, we don't want to play in that tournament or this tournament because it's not big enough for us in the first place. Who the hell do you think you are? That's how that stuff works at that level. And that's why people hate some of these institutions. That's the problem with some of the institutions. Now, I got to tell you, look, I went to Duke, and what Duke says is, look, we will tolerate zero discrimination, zero hate, zero this, zero that. And people hate Duke for reasons they don't even know why they hate Duke. And I don't even know why they do. I got to tell you, I was one of those guys way back, 30 years ago. Well, maybe not 30 years ago. We'll go a little bit further back. We'll just say, 30, 40 years ago. But I didn't know why. You know why? I guess it's because they seem to win a lot. But the reality is, after being a student there and understanding the school culture, they never turned down opportunities to play anywhere. They just won quite a bit. And so people didn't like that. And I remember that right here in Las Vegas. It's like the whole city of Las Vegas hated Duke because they beat the unthinkable. They did the unthinkable. They beat the UNLV Runner Rebels at that time, which was a really big deal because when you think about the matchup, Duke was not supposed to be able to beat them. Well, anyway, because they lost the year before, they came back and avenged their loss. But what I'm trying to say, folks, is that they were the little school and everybody started to hate them because they did the unthinkable. They beat Goliath. And then they become the team that plays with a target on the back. But the reality is people hate schools for certain reasons. And I don't know why, because they put out a lot of really, really big leaders in the business world, the scientific world. I mean, it's Duke Medicine and then everybody else. They lead the United States in medicine, right? But you think about that. How many presidents have come out of that school versus how many have come out of Ohio State in the first place? Well, last I checked, none have come out of Ohio State. I'm only using it as an example. But the reality is everybody gets a shot in the big dance. And even Duke was that team once upon a time in the big dance. They learned how to win. Coach K learned under Bobby Knight, the great Bobby Knight. John Shire learned under Coach K. There's a coaching tree underneath them. It's a culture of winning. And when you think of these little schools like Virginia Commonwealth and High Point and whatever, Sam Houston State, you think of these small schools. I'm just randomly throwing them out. Cal Baptist. It starts somewhere. And at least in college basketball, these schools are given a shot to compete for the most coveted trophy in the most coveted tournament in college basketball. And that is exactly what's right with college basketball. Whereas in college football, everything screams money, 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 money. And you say real quick, well, how come? Well, the average salary for the NBA players is higher than the average salary for the NFL. But when you look at total output, it's almost a dead heat with the 53 players that go to the NFL teams versus the 15 players that go to the NBA. The salaries, the total output almost matches evenly. It's like 160 to 170 million, whatever. So it's real close. So you can't say, well, it's a money thing when it comes to that, or there's only a certain amount of spots. The expenditures, the output are almost the same. That's where I'm going with this. Look, despite NBA players earning significantly higher, the reality is you look at what the owners have to foot the bill for. Well, guess what? NBA players play a hell of a lot more games. The NFL, where they play 16, 17 games, maybe 18 games. Well, in the NBA, they play 82 games. So what are they crying about? They play a hell of a lot more games. And you say, well, maybe it's just a big money play between the two sports. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what we do know is the TV contracts seem to favor certain conferences, and that's not right. That's why we like March Madness over the college football playoff. That's going to do it for today's show. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Excellent.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
I'm your Ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.